We are going to talk about a movie.
This is gonna be a disaster.
It was one of the best movies of the year.
It's gonna go so well. Probably one of the last movies I would ever want to see in a theater.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of 10 Years On, episode 24, watching the films of June 18th, 2010. I am joined by my co-host, Taylor Robinson. How are you?
You know.
I'm getting back in the swing of it. I'm
Slowly
learning how to speak again.
I mean, that's progress, so that's good. There's one good movie this week, so at least I have that to cling to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, one great movie this week.
Yeah.
But
then there's other movies as well. So.
All right, let's introduce our co-panelists, Nick and Peter. How are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Peter?
Very well, thank you, Nick.
You are more than welcome.
Thank you for acknowledging me.
That's, it's been a while since we've seen each other, so...
It really has. I've missed
giddy today.
I've missed your face.
Oh, stop it, it's ugly, stop it.
Oh, it's only going to get weirder, guys.
We're only halfway through the year.
Well, let's move on to our first film. We are, of course, talking about the new Pixar movie, Toy Story 3. The toys are mistakenly delivered to a daycare center instead of the attic right before Andy leaves for college, and it's up to Woody to convince the other toys that they weren't abandoned and to return home. I really love this poster.
Oh my god, that plot description is even really sad.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't been abandoned, you guys. Like, fuck.
I really like this poster. I think it's a really great poster for for what Toy Story would be. It sells Toy Story. I think it sells.
It's like, we've got all of your gangers back.
Yep.
And I feel like, because knowing obviously now what the movie's about, I feel like that's kind of fun. There's a lot of mystery. Like, why are they, firstly, in a location that's very different to Andy's bedroom?
Yeah.
But you're sort of like, this is going to be a ride.
And you're like, ooh, Barbie's just peeking out in the background like something's going on. So.
I mean, especially considering what the other two posters look like. Like one's the last poster is just the three characters on a white background doing peace. Yeah, that's the second movie's poster.
Well, I think I like it, and that also it was a case of like, we know we're going to make bank. All we have to do is put two.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
I don't have anything to say about this poster. The only reason poster talk ever matters is if the poster is bad.
Yeah,
so I have nothing to like.
Yeah,
this is exactly what it needs to be. The whole gang's there.
I do like that obviously this was like a 3D release, but I like that the 3D is just like, it's going to be released in 3D. It's not like Toy Story 3D.
Oh, yeah.
That would have drove me crazy.
That would have been like, ugh, no.
All right, let's talk about this. Everyone had seen this, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Everyone had seen it.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
We'd all cried multiple times.
Oh, this movie breaks my heart. This movie really is beautifully made.
So before we talk about the heartbreak, can we talk about the absolute superstar of this movie?
That is...
Which is... Michael Keaton.
Oh, Michael Keaton steals this.
Ken is the MVP of this movie.
Every line is a hit. Every joke is a hit. And it's so funny because you don't really think it's Michael Keaton. Like, he is just... I don't want to say, like, completely immersed, like he was a method acting Ken, the voice of Ken, but he could have been. But there is just... I feel like Michael Keaton has had so much fun with this, and the chemistry with Barbie is amazing. When he first comes down at a dream house in that little elevator, I was pissing myself
with, like,
off.
his really big shorts. And he's like, tiny little waist.
The fashion show.
Body goals.
The fashion show is cinema magic. Because
and it's like one of those things that like in other movies when they do like costume stuff, you're like, you guys are just like trying to fill in time. In this one, you're just like, I want more.
It's brilliant because it's used as a distraction tactic.
Yes,
like it's actually a real plot device.
And to really be like, this is how like absorbed Ken is. Like, he's just like, oh, let me do a fashion show for you.
I love like Barbie knows exactly how to threaten him by ripping his vintage clothing in
Oh
half.
God, yes.
Like,
The ascot.
like it's that is probably outside of the emotional beats of the movie, that is probably my favorite through line
Hilarious,
story.
yeah.
And when they they kiss and like both their legs go up. Like, because I love that it's Michael. Because I think a lot of people forget like Michael Keaton has a history in comedy. Like I think a lot of people forget that, and this was also before he had really resurged as.
Realistically, this is the movie that started the
Yeah,
resurgence.
yeah.
Like, because he'd really been off the radar.
Yeah.
He was the villain in Cars, in the first Cars. Like he was the villain in that. And then he came here, and this is the movie that...
Yeah, and then like he pops up later in the year in The Other Guys.
Yeah, like this was the start of
it.
Michael Keaton getting back into comedy.
And thank God,
Yeah.
because I love Michael Keaton. I think he's such a great actor, and he's like so willing to just complete. Like it's funny to say like you immersed yourself in the character of Ken, but it's like you absolutely did. Like you committed, like you vocally committed to this role. It's so great.
So good.
So Ken is absolutely fantastic, but I just want to actually talk about like the emotional story part of this movie, because I do think that getting in, like, okay, getting into the actual like meat of this story, it was incredibly brave of Pixar to do this story.
Absolutely.
Like to actually go, we're not doing Toy Story 3, which is set 3 years after Toy Story 2, and it's a cute little story, and then it ends with all happily ever after with Andy, and the ending of Toy Story 2 is we'll be there when Andy doesn't want us anymore. Cool. What happens when Andy doesn't want you anymore?
So good.
Let's show that story.
And
And,
it's also
they
kind of
actually
like-
showed that story.
And it's also like I like that he, you know, like he doesn't want to get rid of them. You know, he's like, I'm going to put them in the attic because they're my childhood toys, and I'm not necessarily going to like bring them to college with me. But I don't want to get rid of them. So I liked that it was that. You like, because you do like there are things that you're like, I don't want to throw this away. I'm never probably gonna need these again. But this is like a part of me. So I like that he wasn't just like get rid of them. But you know, obviously like the mix up means, and they're all like, he doesn't want us anymore. And like the whole time Woody's like, he does.
But it's great that a movie that focuses so heavily on Woody having to deal with this, that we can get that from the limited times we see Andy on screen, like his own internal conflict with this. That's just power to Pixar being able to show and not tell. We don't actually hear Andy at any point really say, I'm going to miss these toys so much, really until the end. But yeah, and even though it's Woody having to come to terms with the fact that this is the reality now, I think it's just incredible storytelling.
And that Woody is like, no, he does, like, it's like, he hasn't gotten rid of us.
No, yeah, exactly.
But like, how do you convey that to the other ones that are just like, yeah, he did.
Yeah.
You know,
And can we just talk, like, I know we were just talking about how great Michael Keaton was as voicing. Dude, Tom Hanks as Woody in this, and is just wow. Like, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
You just hear every single emotion just so perfectly encapsulated. Like the scene where they're like, oh, we're going to call a staff meeting, and they're all just there, and you can tell the weight of everything is on his shoulders.
Like if Tom Hanks and Michael Keaton like delivered this kind of stuff as live action people, you'd be like nominations across the board for sure.
Yeah, they are absolutely incredible in this film. I Toy Story 3 I think is one of Pixar's best films. Like I think this is my favorite of the Toy Story films. I think it's incredibly well done. There is a level of play while like they do have fun with the escape movie. Like the whole fun and let's just play along with escape movies works so well in that middle chunk where it could very easily be slow and a little boring. Like, because the first half is so focusing on a lot of emotional stuff, the middle half is the fun, and then the ending is heavy emotional stuff.
Yeah.
I think that middle section could have very easily fallen flat, but it works incredibly well just because they do decide, no, we're going to have a lot of levity and a lot of fun with it.
Absolutely.
What do you think? Okay.
I think that even for 2010, the animation is still fucking incredible.
Oh,
for,
yeah.
like for today's standards too. And obviously then when we get to see them revisit Toy Story again last year with Toy Story 4, which was insane animation. Even going back and watching this, and I was only watching a Blu-ray copy, so not even 4K. I was watching, I was like, oh my God, there is just so much texture and life. And these are toys. They're in real life, they're plastic, they're fur, and it just, I don't know, there's so much liveliness in the film. And a lot of that comes from the animation, but then just, I think nostalgia plays a big part of it. And something that I think works so well is something that I think the Harry Potter franchise does well, is that these 3 movies have grown up with its audience.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely brave to tell this story, because it is a lot more of a mature story, which is still completely accessible for the child audience that it's going for. There's still a lot of fun. There's still a lot of mayhem and lots of, well, I said fun already, especially with that escape movie thing, but the emotional gravity this movie has is something that I feel like people who grew up watching Toy Story 1 and 2 in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, is something they probably deal with at that point in their life, is sort of how do we go from that next step into adulthood and stuff, and what is giving things up that we love. And that movie just tackles that so well, but not even from Andy's point of view, it's from Woody and having to move on. And it's and handing down, like it's showing the next generation, obviously, because then when he gives all the toys to Bonnie at the end, which is just
heartbreaking,
fucking amazing scene. It's just going that like giving that joy that I had my whole childhood to someone else is where that climax happens, and that's what he was wanting to get out of it, which is amazing.
I want to talk about something that you had brought up when we were watching the movie, which is the way that they chose to end this movie. And I'm not talking about when the toys are given to Bonnie. I'm talking about before that. They very easily could have gone from the moment at the dumpster when they get rid of the villain and then straight back to Bonnie.
Yeah.
They could have gone, okay, that's their end of their story. Now they can get home. But instead, they show you think you've gotten rid of the villain, but you don't. And then they go on this whole other journey where they go out of their way to save the villain and then get betrayed again.
Yeah.
And I think that's some heavy stuff for a kids movie.
Oh, God,
Yeah.
Like, even though it was more aimed at our generation who grew up with the movies, at the end of the day, it's still a kids Pixar movie. And that's a lot to put on an audience like that. But I think it's important that you do that, because a lot of studios don't treat kids like they can understand things like that.
Yeah.
I think you're right, and that whole furnace sequence, like at the trash site in the dump, should absolutely be in this. Wouldn't be in another type of film. Wouldn't be in a non-Pixar movie. I think Pixar is one of the only studios in the world who would be brave enough to actually do that entire sequence.
Yeah.
Because the shot that always reminds me of it is not the one where they're all holding hands. It's the one where it's a duplicate shot of when Woody is standing at the start of the film. We get the one where he's surveying the entire bedroom, and you get it's all happy and everything. And then there's the exact same shot again when he's at the trash site, and it's just it's death and ruin, and
it's heartbreaking when they've all come to terms with that fact too. When they all sort of hug into each other and be like, well, this is the end. You just go, oh my God. Like, it was, I remember watching that in the cinema, and I took my little sister, who was 6 at the time, tears.
Yeah.
From me. But also, she was in tears, I was in tears, and I'm just like, I can't believe, and in saying that with Pixar being able to do it, we saw inklings of it with How to Train Your Dragon when he loses the leg. But this is like a massive step up from that.
Yeah. I just remember, I remember seeing that movie in the cinemas and that scene happening, and it was that case of like, they're gonna do it.
So
and that's when you just like, no, and then you sort of think, nah, like, and then when they all like, it's like when, like, because you see like Tom Hanks is like, what is the one that kind of accepts it first?
Yeah.
And you sort of think,
Buzz is the one who accepts.
Buzz,
yeah.
But it's like, it's when they look around at each other and they all kind of have that look of that fear, but it's also like, And that's when they all like grab his hand, and you can just see them just going.
It's
"This
when
is it," 'cause it's
Woody
all-
gives up is when you go, oh my god, Woody can't save the dad.
And
That's where
we're
you're
all, and you know,
most
like
scared
it's
as
kind of
an
like
audience.
we're in this. Like if we're gonna go down, we're gonna go down together, and you're just like, oh my god, like I am not prepared. For this
A
at
quick
all.
side note on this scene. Did you guys see the video that went viral a few years ago where these brothers pranked their mum and they edited the end of Toy Story 3 and then when Woody closes his eyes, they edit it to fade to black and then the end credits start.
Oh my god.
And the mum's just sitting there going, what the fuck?
So
One of the funniest videos
That's
I've ever seen.
horrible.
So, I had heard 3 things about this movie before I went and saw it. Pixar were incredibly brave.
Mm-hmm.
The ending will make you bawl your eyes out crying.
Yeah.
They can never make a sequel. Like after this, so that furnace scene happens.
It's like,
they've done it.
you're like, yeah, okay, you like Pixar, yep, it's brave, that's pretty brave.
Yeah, the
like,
fucking madman,
it's gonna
they
make you
did
cry.
it.
Like,
Yeah.
all right, this will make me cry. No sequel. Well, I feel like they're all gonna die.
Yeah, no, but like, yeah, it was one. I was sitting there during the furnace scene, going, "Holy crap, they're actually gonna do this! Like,
Yeah.
they're gonna go there and they're going to do this." My other favorite story about this is the whole reason Bo Peep's not in this movie was because the writers couldn't figure out how she would survive the furnace scene. Like they had
God.
because she would have melted. Like as soon as she got in there, she would have melted. So they
Oh my
couldn't
God.
figure out how she would have survived
I'm
that.
just picturing that scene.
Oh.
So they
Can
didn't
you imagine
write.
some, like House of Wax shit where they just look at her and she's like, oh my god.
It's just smells like Woody.
I mean,
It's just like, what the fuck?
Like the voice box is all like, "Whoa."
I feel like there's a way they could have gotten around
Yeah.
it without her being at the furnace scene.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if she gets left at the daycare or something. Like I feel like they could have
They could
done
have,
it,
but yeah.
especially since she goes rogue in the 4th movie anyway.
If she had
Oh,
popped up,
fuck the fourth.
I know.
So great.
I
she
know.
had popped up with the 3 little aliens
Yeah.
to save him at the
Yeah.
end, and that would have been.
She
you
could
know,
have dangled them on her.
But in fairness, the way that she gets reintroduced in number 4.
Oh my
yeah,
god,
so good.
so good.
She is
Like,
a
oh, I like
highlight of that movie.
action heroine. She's Bo Peep.
Fucking
She's
Pixar.
Time for some pants.
Yeah. Yes. It's just
But
like.
yeah,
How do they
Feminism.
make these movies so consistently good?
Yeah.
that's
This
Because I had forgotten that. Because I remember this furnace scene, but I had forgotten that the villain, like.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten
God.
that. So then I was like, I fucking hate that purple.
he's.
skin thing.
Sorry. What were you going to say?
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Okay, he is the best villain
Yeah.
out of the out of the 4 films. He is the absolute best
It's,
villain.
is it
No.
Ali Emery? Is he the voice for it?
I thought it was Ned.
Was it
Yeah, it's Ned Beatty,
Oh,
yeah.
Ned Beatty, okay.
Who's your favorite
Oh,
villain?
Ali Emery is
No,
the...
it's always movie number 2, man.
Yeah,
always
that's
movie
fair.
number 2.
That's fair.
Nah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Don't even argue with me
That's
about
fair.
this one.
That's fair.
Like, I get that emotionally everyone's favorite is the 3rd one, but do you know how many times I'm not going to choose to watch Toy Story 3
That's
because of how much at the
Yeah.
end, like, I
Yeah,
need, like, a
that's
break
fair.
from life after that.
That's fair.
Like
Yeah.
number
God,
two
the
is
villain is
number
so
2 is
gross in
sad,
number 2,
and
yeah.
I love the villain,
Yeah.
and I can watch it without like bawling 3 gallons of water out of my eyes
Yeah,
afterwards.
that's right.
And I like Toy Story 3 means a lot to me, but out of all of them, that is the one I'm gonna put on very least
Yeah,
because
that's fair.
because I just can't wreck myself emotionally like that all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Like
You know-
you
willingly do
literally
it.
should have seen us last night after we finished it. Like it was bad.
I held together for majority of it, and then as soon
But
as
then I also thought, then you followed it up with Winter's
yeah.
We had a rough night last
Yeah,
night.
no, but as soon as I held it together. I was holding it together, and then as soon as Woody says "so long," I lose it.
Like it was bad. So like my point is, as great as Toy Story 3 is,
Yeah.
like I can't call it my favorite because I just can't.
2 has more balance.
Like I
in
can't.
terms
Well,
of, yeah.
and Jesse's story in 2
Oh,
is
yeah.
like
oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, Toy
So-
Story 3 is great, but emotionally I can only handle it so much.
But one of the more like lighthearted moments of Toy Story 3, I love the beginning of that movie. I was like, fuck, they just go all out with the train sequence.
Oh God, yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
Oh.
so
So much
well
fun.
done.
yeah. Like it's funny though. That I can
the
rem-
monkeys in it.
I can remember that they released that opening before it came out, and people were not happy. They were
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, they've just gone over CGI.
Yeah.
They've done everything." And then it was like, "No, this is a kid's imagination." Like they actually thought it was real,
Yeah.
and it's like, "No, this is just the kid's imagination." It's like,
Which is
"Oh my god, that's
fantastic.
genius!"
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
it's absolutely brilliant. I love this movie so much. Like it's
We can't finish this off without talking about our lovely Spanish version of Buzz Lightyear.
Oh my god.
It's so clever. It's so funny and clever, and he does like.
And unnervingly sexy.
I mean, Jesse would agree with you.
She is hard up for some buzz at the end of that movie.
And the fact that he can't remember any of it, and she's like, "We've got Spanish Buzz on our side," and he's like, "Excuse me."
This movie won 2 Oscars. It wins animated feature at the end of the year, but it also wins best original song. I really do love "We Belong Together." I think "We Belong Together" is a really nice, genuine, really sweet song, and having that after, and then I think it's the moment of levity of having that after so long partner, and then you get the outtake or the ending of the movie, and it's just like, okay, that's a palate cleanser a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I love this movie. This is, I think, one of Pixar's best films. It's I get exactly what you're saying though. Like, it's very difficult to be able, like, you've got to be I'm willing to cry for the next half an hour.
Like literally, when he was like, "Okay, tonight's Toy Story 3 and Winter's Bone," I went,
The double feature of the century.
I'd be like, you can't fucking warn me. Like, you could have had another double set up somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's I love Toy Story 3, and it means a lot to me for a lot of reasons. And I have heard people say that if you didn't grow up with it, it doesn't mean as much to you. But I don't really know if I buy that.
Oh, God.
I don't either. Yeah.
But
I mean, it means more, but I don't think it's like a case of you watching it. If you didn't grow up with it, you wouldn't go like, I have no emotional connection. This would be like bullshit.
like, you know what? If you say that sentence to me, I'm very concerned for your emotional health at that point.
If you don't shed one tear when those toys are about to like burn, I'm like, nah, you're dead inside, and I don't want anything to do with you.
But that's Toy Story 3.
Guys, it's only gonna get worse from
I
here.
wish the
so.
sadness ended here,
It does not.
but it does not.
Well, now we talk about another kind of sadness. Let's move on to whatever studio was dumb enough to release this movie the same weekend as Toy Story 3. We're, of course, talking about Jonah Hex. The US military makes a scarred bounty hunter with warrants on his own head an offer he cannot refuse. In exchange for his freedom, he must stop a terrorist who is ready to unleash hell on Earth. This is Jonah Hex.
So I just want to say that summary reflects nothing of what I actually got out of this movie. So can we start there?
No, this is very much a movie where you just go, you filmed
A
something
different movie.
and you put together something else.
Yeah. Your script says one thing. And the movie you came out with says
I mean, we do know that it was Josh Brolin was like, we signed on to make an R-rated movie. We filmed something that was not like, he's very apologetic about it. Megan Fox is like, this is the worst thing I've been in. You're like,
Wow.
okay, wow. That's,
I mean, you
saying
know what?
something.
I don't disagree with her, actually.
I would agree with her. Yeah.
I put in the group chat, and this is something very concerning to me, but I put in the group chat that her waist in this movie, like they had to have put like 3 corsets on her because
that first scene, I was like, she is fucking tiny.
But it's not even like a health, like it's not even close to.
It's
It's not supposed to, it's not sexy like they want it to be. It was
Like,
I
I
was
remember,
uncomfortable. I was like, for her.
Like, I remember there were paparazzi shots of her walking on set in the corset, and it was like, wow. And then watching the movie 10 years ago, whenever I first saw it, I was like, yep, she's really super tiny. And I haven't really revisited. So rewatching it again, I was like, yep, that is unnapped. Like, it hurts.
bad.
It hurts to watch because you just think,
I feel like she would have like permanent fucking rib damage
I think they
or.
said it got down to like 18 inches or something. And
There's
I was like, that's not
Why?
Dude.
Why?
Especially for a movie where you go, your character is they don't treat your character well.
Mm.
Like you seem really bored. Like you
Yeah.
don't seem interested to be there.
Her
at
character's
all.
so wasted in this movie. It's
she-
ridiculous.
Like when they were hyping it up, and it was like Josh Brolin, John Malkovich, Megan Fox, and they asked her, she's like, I've pretty much more basically like got an extended cameo, and you watch it and you go,
Oh yeah.
not entirely untrue. Like she's not really.
She's in one scene.
You know?
She's realistically in about 3 scenes.
Yeah.
Like if we're being kind, she's in 3 scenes.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to this
All right, let's
poster.
talk
I mean,
about poster.
I actually don't mind this.
I don't
poster.
either. I don't
hate
think the
it.
poster's bad.
It suits what the movie
It
that
really
you kind of want to
makes
get.
sense for what we're getting.
I mean,
Like, but
For what they wanted to make. Yeah.
But yeah, like if this trailer came out for the R-rated version of this movie, I'd be like, okay, yep, that's the
Yeah.
poster. That makes sense. Like,
Josh Brolin's got his brooding face, and Megan Fox looks fucking banging in that photo.
Yeah.
I mean, the most shocking part about this is Michael Fassbender's in this movie. Actually, and that he's on the poster at this point.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that's
true.
actually
Well,
kind of
this was before he was Michael Fassbender.
yeah. So
I mean, I get marketing wise why you have to put Megan on this poster, but she should not be on there.
No.
Based on her like glorified
Yeah.
cameo
Yeah.
scenes that
And
she
there's,
ends up
another,
getting.
and there's another poster where it's got Josh Brolin, John Malkovich, Megan Fox. Like she even gets
I
like,
do- I remember that's how
she even
like
gets like
DVD
third
cover,
crediting.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, I don't hate this poster, but it's hard to like because of the movie we ended up getting.
That's
it's
it.
like
Yeah.
I don't even know what they were trying to do with what we ended up getting.
And you
so
almost imagine like and you sort of wonder. I wonder if Jonah Hex will ever get another chance, knowing now that people are probably
Yeah.
a bit more.
well, he's on Legends of Tomorrow, so the
Okay.
CW show. So they've kind of like redone him there. So yeah, but you're right. Like this, it is interesting. You know, the 2010s. The 2000s were an interesting time for comic books because
Yeah.
it was DC had the problem. They've always had this problem where everyone knows their 2 biggest names or 3 biggest names now. Like everyone knows Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, but not many people know the rest, or the rest were considered a joke.
Right.
Like, as in, like Green Lantern was a
I
joke.
mean, Aquaman was considered a joke. For
Yeah, like
ages.
Aquaman was the joke. He was the joke superhero.
Jokes on you now.
Yeah, but it took casting someone like completely redefining that character.
I mean, I would argue that also in the conversation would have been Spider-Man wasn't a joke.
no, sorry. Yeah, I was sorry.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
more meaning DC.
Yeah, but
was-
you just
yeah,
said
sorry,
superheroes.
Sorry, yes, that
so
was my
let's
mistake.
straighten that out
Yes,
real quick.
Sorry, yes, but
But it's funny that you think like Dark Knight was like two years before
before
this.
this,
And you just
yeah.
go, so DC sort of they knew like, but obviously they wanted to go with like this is kind of like a Suicide Squad of 2010 where it was
Yeah.
where it was
Hacked to
where it was
shit.
hacked to shit. But except Suicide Squad managed to like, we made like $700 million. So,
It's so funny because you hear certain filmmakers talk about it's like, oh, the movie's made with the script, and then the movie's made again when you film it, and then it's made again where it's
yeah, there's
editing.
there's always 3 versions of the film.
And I feel like there's no more relevant term to
Yeah.
describe
no,
this.
because there's whole scenes where like when he's in like the other like plane.
The realm.
The
or-
realm,
yeah,
and you
whatever
sort of,
it is,
and he's
yeah.
like fighting John Malkovich, but then he's not fighting him, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Yes,
I was
I know what's
like,
going
there is. I feel like I watched it going, I haven't missed anything because I've been like watching this. I was like,
I feel like the movie was like, we told you there was supernatural stuff in the beginning,
You're like,
okay?
no,
So
you
we'll just
didn't.
throw it in when we want to.
Well, I had a really hard time with this because I'd never seen it before.
Yeah.
Smartly, I skipped this one.
Well, it never came here.
Really?
Yeah, straight
No,
to
It
it
was advertised in cinemas.
Yep.
And then it opened in the States, and they were like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'd never seen it before, and literally 5 minutes into it, I was like, I feel like I missed something.
But it feels like it opens, and you're like, is this like a previously on Jonah Hex or something? Like it feels like there's a whole story that they've just gone, you'll figure it out.
And then they skip out on any, like you were saying, on any of the actual world building. Because when the supernatural stuff shows up, you're like,
yeah.
wait a
What's
And,
second.
to me, it's an interesting world.
Oh, fuck yeah.
I was like, I
absolutely,
feel like there's this great story and this great character here.
Awesome
that they
concepts.
just-
Yeah, they just don't do anything with it.
No.
And it's just a mess. And like, as someone who's not familiar with Jonah Hex material
yeah.
at all, I was like, what the fuck is going
Like,
on?
I can only imagine Jonah Hex fans being like, "What have you done?" Whereas like we're just like, "This is a shit movie that makes no sense." Jonah Hex fans would be like, "I want to talk about it." And, like you can tell Josh Brolin he was like, "I really want this."
He was
you know?
trying. He was really trying.
And I've seen in interviews where he said halfway through filming, he was just like, no one had any idea what to do. And you're like, well, that's not a great sign.
Ooh.
Halfway through filming, everyone's like, let's just give up.
This movie was written by the famous duo of Neville Dean and Taylor. For those who don't know, are famous for Crank High Voltage, and Gamer.
Oh, Crank. One of the greatest
However,
movies.
they did not direct this movie, which makes me wonder if they were originally attached and then the production and they were just like,
aesthetic.
they was like, do you know what? Not even we want to direct this. And if you have to, if you got to stoop like that to, you know, get your movie made, it was very, because they are very kinetic energy sort of filmmakers. And even when I was watching this, I was like, their branding is all over this and it's a mess.
You know who is a producer on this that I found really, really quite amusing? Matt LeBlanc.
Oh, there you go. Hey.
I don't know why he was involved in this,
Big Jonah Hex fan.
but you know what?
And like watching this movie, it's just, once again, I get why you cast Megan Fox, but like
Can you do
Yeah.
something with her?
in this movie, like it's basically like they're trying to make her a kick-ass character, and she has like a scene where like kind of,
Yeah.
but then it's like, oh, but you also just want her to be way too young arm candy for fucking Jonah Hex.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's weird.
It's odd.
Like, it's
Yeah.
just,
Because you're just like, Josh Brolin is like, he's an attractive guy. And even in this, I was like, even with his fucked up face, I was like,
In fairness, that makeup wasn't bad.
oh yeah.
That makeup
Even
wasn't
with the
bad.
fucked up face, I was like, there's still like, you know, he's got the brooding thing going on. But like, when you put him next to Megan Fox, I was
Yeah.
like, she looks like unnaturally young next
Yeah.
to him.
Yeah.
And I don't know
Yeah.
if there's like a weird like sheen.
I feel like there
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But
But it
even
makes-
without that,
But it makes
it's
the
like,
difference look like
Yeah.
a lot. Like it's almost just like you feel like you're like a teenage
If
prostitute.
it feels like
it's-
he should be a father figure for
Yeah.
her in this movie,
Yeah.
and that's not what they
I
go
feel like
with.
that
No.
would suit John.
Which would have,
Jonah
like-
Hex more.
and then even if he went to visit her at the brothel, but then just like they just hang like you know
Yeah.
it's like he's
He's-
just like he finds like soul like you know it's like this is my little sanctuary and they don't have sex, but
yeah.
you know that no they've got a sexual relationship which you just go
Like you're right. If he turns up and he's like he pays for however like
And
he
you
pays
think
to
it's going to
it's
be
to
for sex.
that, but it's just
He's
likes
trying to
the
take care of her.
company. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
taking
and you'd
care
be
of
like
her.
you know what I'm on
Yeah.
board with this tiny little bit of the film.
But no, instead it's fully like no, this is a sexual relationship.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
like,
And, like-
she is like 12 or 17.
And
in
like
this
looks
movie.
so
I
young.
and I don't want to like shame, like I don't want this to turn into like shaming people for their sexual
No.
preferences, but it just feels weird in the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Like it
I mean,
just
yeah,
Well, it's
and
not
we're
developed.
we're Megan Fox fans. We love
Yeah.
Megan
Yeah.
Fox.
love that for her.
Yeah. I feel
like
With
the-
whatever she
And you know
wants
what?
to do.
Like, you know
But-
what? I would bang an ugly Josh Brolin.
But in this movie, it just feels out of
look-
place.
It
yeah.
is because it's so underdeveloped. Like
Yeah.
it
That's
happens.
it.
It just
Yeah.
happens, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. So we just need to now understand that. Yeah,
Like,
they have
yeah,
it,
like-
within once. Like the first scene, they're together, and you're just like,
It would
okay,
be
cool.
different if, like, you know, if we
Fun.
knew, if maybe he like rescued her, like if he knew her from like a young age,
Yeah.
or like he
Like
It feels-
anything
or it
to
feels
make
like-
it feel like
like feels like some daddy issues that she had in like in a backstory
yeah,
because
just-
you know what, we can give her a backstory if we want to because this movie is only like what, like
80 minutes
80,
long.
it's so
Like, they're just
so
like-
short.
It's like
By the way, that's 80 minutes with credits.
Credits.
Yeah.
So I think I looked up when I finished it. I was
No,
like
that's
72 minutes
that's
into
also,
the
that's
movie.
with end credits because it literally just is just like Warner Brothers with Jonah Hex, go.
There are two things in the movie that I enjoyed, and these are the most Nick things to enjoy in a movie like
all right,
this.
I'm looking forward to this.
When he had the machine guns on the horses, I was like, fuck yeah, I'm in. And then the rest of the movie happened. And also, I like the concept, the idea of being able to bring people back to life and to get that. If that scene he has with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I was like, that's a cool fucking scene to get. Like, this is someone who is integral to the story and you don't find out until they're actually introduced. But like, I feel like if we had more development, a scene like that is pivotal in this movie to be able to go forward. So there are two things I liked. Also, Lance Reddick is in this, and I love him. And I was like, this is just his character. I felt like before John Wick. It's the same sort of, and I thought that would be very cool if this was like a prequel to John Wick. But I don't want it to be because it's a fucking awful movie.
Like a prequel.
Yeah, exactly.
Prequel to
It's like a long line of these characters who
and
are
like,
there.
like
the
every
assassin,
century,
yeah.
it's like, hey, you look like your ancestor.
It actually is frustrating
It's
because
just
there are
old.
so many elements that could have been so cool in this
Yeah,
movie if they would have
yeah.
taken, like, moments like that.
Yeah.
Where if they would have taken the time to actually build up to something like that,
Yeah.
such a cool
Instead of
moment
just-
to have.
Yeah.
And
throw it all in there.
also having, Jonah Hex is fundamentally he's a Confederate soldier. Like
yeah.
his
Wouldn't know that,
no,
though.
but his crime was that he stopped them from killing. Like he stopped he killed Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah.
To stop him from killing other people. Like
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
that was his crime.
Like,
and
there's the story that you'd be like, that would have been really nice to know, like...
To, like,
Oh, to do-
actually understand that
Because,
story.
because like, when John Malkovich, like, kills his wife at the beginning, you're sort of like, what, like, where does this come
where's
from?
the stakes?
And then, like,
Yeah.
I read the Wikipedia, like, plot.
So did
and
I.
was
When I
like,
was watching it, I
and
was
there's, like,
like,
this
so what's
first
happening right
paragraph.
now?
There's a first paragraph that I'm like, oh, that's what's happening?
Yeah, I was like,
I was like, fuck, all right.
But yeah, I agree with you there that like the whole that scene with him and Jeffrey Dean Morgan could have been a really pivotal like showdown moment of the movie, and instead you're like, what the and the fact that they don't reveal that that's who he killed until that moment is like, why?
instead of like when he's revived and you go, oh my god, it's the reveal that happens after you find out everything. You go, oh,
Like, it's
And that's
more of a case
disappointing.
of when he revived, you're just like, oh, it's Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, oh, it's
that.
that character. It's just like, oh, it's that guy from, like, the
Jeffrey
Blues
Dean
episode.
Morgan, Michael Fassbender, John Malkovich, Will Arnett, John
Michael-
Gallagher Jr., Wes
Michael
Bentley,
Shannon.
Michael Shannon are all in this.
But also,
movie.
I love that watching Will Arnett, you're
Yes.
just like, you feel like you're in a like,
Will Arnett is so out of place in this movie. It's hilarious.
all of it feels like he's like in a movie that's like taking the piss out of the genre.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
Like, it doesn't
It's like
suit
exactly
it.
what he did in Teenage Mutant Ninja
Yeah.
Turtles. Like he's playing the exact
Yeah.
same person.
Except it kind of worked in Ninja Turtles.
I will
little bit.
say, Michael Fassbender is having the time of his life on this movie. Like he is actually
it up.
like, you know what?
Yeah.
It's
Hand
bad.
it up.
I don't care. I'm gonna have fun.
And it was also like like Michael Fassbender was in that kind of stage of like, I'm not like the renowned actor that everyone knows. me
Yeah.
as. So
Yes.
that's why he's kind of like been able to just like
Just doing the roles.
sail on. But he was
Yeah.
just like, I'm next year I'm gonna be an X-Men and Shame and everyone's gonna love me.
Yeah.
So
So I think he is the one little bit of brightness that is in this god awful movie.
I still I feel like I'm going crazy because I watched this whole movie and I like don't remember most of what actually
that's-
like I
yeah.
still don't know what the story actually
yeah.
really was.
Yeah.
You're not the only one.
So-
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, because I've rewatched, like, I saw it and I've rewatched it, and this is probably like second or third time I rewatched it. And every time I rewatch it, before I do it, it's almost like I'm like, nah, there's like, I was like, I know that I've missed something. Like, I was like, it's not that. And then you watch it and you go, no, it's just bad. And then like a few years later, I'll probably be like, let's just give it another go.
I turned it on and I was like, you know what? I feel like I remember kind of liking this. And I was like, no, I did not at all.
So that's Jonah Hex. Not a good movie. We do not recommend at all.
No.
I would not be going to see that one. All right, let's move on to limited release. We had this one, Cyrus.
Oh.
John and Molly, a divorced middle-aged man and a single mother, meet at a friend's party and start up a small relationship. All John has to do is meet Molly's son, Cyrus.
Wow.
Oh
What?
my god! What is this poster?
This poster is the indie film circuit.
Yeah.
We need a fucking poster because we're going to limited release this weekend.
Oh, and
There's-
you want to talk about doing a bad white background?
I know. How many times have we brought this up of that's like there's a wrong way to do a white background and we found another strike and whatever like filter they've put over them makes them look like they're sick. Like they look like they're like yellowy and like
So bad.
Yeah.
Oh my
not
God.
Marissa Tomei's one looks like it's a paparazzi shot, like she's walked a red carpet or something. She's just sort of like there.
Like she's like
there's
I'm
lots-
like my hair's good.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, I mean more in the sense like lots of photos are getting taken, so she's just kind of just looking at the paparazzi shots, and I was just like, oh man, this poster.
My God.
Yeah,
I hate the way Cyrus is written too.
Yeah,
With the weird, like I know that it's meant to be like
trying to be cutesy,
but
and
it's just like it just kind of looks like
Oh, the Duplass brothers.
no, but it kind of looks like you forgot to color inside the lines. Like, that's what that looks like.
They're like, we ran out of budget.
We spent we spent too much money photoshopping the cast together.
We ran out of blue.
So we went, fuck it, just do it. Give it to Kevin, he'll figure it out.
I've never seen this movie before.
Yeah.
So who here had ever seen it?
No.
No one. Okay.
Nobody.
So I am not a fan of the type of movie that this is,
No,
which
me
is
neither.
just 90 minutes of having you being in an awkward place the entire time. Now, so I want to preface everything with that. Is that there are people who do enjoy that type of humor, who do think that it works. Like, it's probably why I'm not a massive fan of The Office. It's because the Office is so focusing on that type of humor, at least.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I just can't get
Like,
into
you just
it.
have to watch people be in awkward situations, and if you find that funny,
Then
then
you'll-
you find it funny.
Yeah.
Sure.
But for someone who feels awkward in all life situations, I don't really want to spend my time watching
Yeah.
Which is understandable.
that.
And so I really didn't like this movie,
Yeah,
but
I
it was
didn't
for
either.
that reason. And
Yeah, that makes
I can
sense.
at least understand. Like, I can see if someone said to me, "Oh, I thought it was really funny. I really enjoyed it." I go, I can get that.
I was willing to be into it until we got to the scene where he meets Cyrus for the first time.
Yeah.
When they're sitting at the table
Yeah.
and they're all having dinner, that was when I was like, I can't enjoy this movie because it was just like,
It almost takes a weird shift there.
yeah.
I like the party scene at the beginning because you feel bad for John C. Reilly
Yeah.
so
That
much.
was-
As someone who is obviously not over his divorce, which was many years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when he meets Marissa Tomei, I was like, oh, these guys are actually sort of kicking it off. They're both a little quirky and they're both clicking to each other.
Because that was when I messaged you guys to be like, oh, like John C. Reilly and Marissa Tomei are like really cute together. Like this might not be that bad because I just seen that scene together and I was like, it plays like he's awkward, but it plays really naturally. Like Marissa Tomei is just like so
She's very
full of, like,
opening and accepting of that,
So
and then
I was
she
like,
reciprocates. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, maybe this won't be that
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
And then like Jonah Hill came into it, and I was like, oh, you guys,
I'm so
I don't
conflicted
like
on that
him.
bit because it feels like the movie changes then. But
Yeah.
I also thought the funniest scene of the movie is when he's like, oh, hey, do you want to hear my synth tracks? And he's playing the music and he's just staring at John C. Reilly like dead in the eyes, just like plays his music, which is this trippy synth music. And he's just like, and John C. Reilly for like 30 seconds. And I lost it. But then I went, this is very different to the first 15 minutes.
And like, and then when you realize just how unstable and how sad Jonah Hill is,
Ooh,
it's really just
It
like,
gets dark.
it makes it so much more like, because this could have been like, this could have been one of those movies where it's just like, oh, the son doesn't like the stepdad, and they're gonna get all in like, not stepdad, but like they don't.
You always
Yeah.
make
The
it
new
seem
boyfriend.
like
Like
a
they're gonna get in
hijinks
like
movie,
and it's kind of like that's what you think it's gonna be like. Oh, he steals his shoes. Like, where's this gonna go? And then you realize Jonah Hill is like, but Jonah Hill is like he's like a grown man.
Yeah.
So it's just like really sad.
It's even darker because he calls him out and he calls himself out on that. He's like, I'm an adult. Like, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
and then he's just a sociopath. He's a psychopath.
So when John C. Reilly like is like mouthing like when he comes to see him at the end, he's just like, fuck you. I was like, yep, I'm on board with this. But it started off when I was like, oh, this could be like a cute, quirky little thing. And then Jonah Hill comes into it and you're like, you're the whole reason this movie is meant to propel forward because you're Cyrus. I was like, I don't like this. Yeah.
That was kind of where the movie really lost me because I was with you guys. I wasn't the biggest fan of the opening, but I did like their chemistry together.
Yeah,
but I
for
wasn't
sure.
the biggest fan of the opening just because I really, really do not like this filming style. Like the
J.J. Abrams directed this, right?
the shaky.
It fucking looks like
oh,
it.
the
crash zoom.
There was not like a
crash zoom.
single steady shot in
No,
this whole
and it
fucking
was
movie.
just shaky cam the entire time, zooming in and out. Like it felt like a documentary filmmaker.
Paul
And
Greengrass is just like,
Yeah, legitimately.
Yeah, it was really jarring actually.
it's-
and
Super jarring,
it drove me a little bit insane watching it like that. But then I did like their relationship. But then also I wasn't the biggest fan of his character, especially when he goes
Jonah Hill?
No,
John C.
John C.
Reilly,
Riley.
yeah.
When he like goes,
When he
he starts stalking her.
Yeah.
Like I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, all right, we're going there. You're stalking her
And
now.
because
All
it's
right.
sort of the funny thing is, and we haven't said it yet, it sort of matches his character, who is a very sad, lonely, desperate man who still has a very unhealthy friendship with his ex-wife.
Yeah.
And I think the movie does an okay job of portraying that. Where I think the movie's a little bit murky is, I feel like I feel like the movie's trying to tell you that you should be on John C. Reilly's side, where there was more times than not that I was a little uncomfortable with what he was doing and uncomfortable with that relationship he has with his ex-wife, and then obviously going to Marissa Tomei's house without her knowing and like looking around the house and shit. Like it's weird.
Well, and that's another problem that I have with going back and trying to watch a lot of these movies is so many, if not most of these stories are told through a male lens, and that's supposed to be cute. Following this woman around to like figure out what she's doing is supposed to be charming, and it's like if someone fucking did that to me,
yeah.
like
But you know that if it was,
Hello.
but also you know that if it was the other way around, it'd be like, oh my god, that
She's
chick,
crazy.
She's crazy.
Yeah.
Whereas like he's just like really concerned for her. Wants to be like, no, he's crazy. Like he's
He's-
like
crazy.
if I came home and he was in my house
yeah.
with my son that I had never talked about,
No, it's-
I would be like,
that's
Like,
exactly.
Be like, you
Um,
need to like, I'd be like, I don't want to make a scene right now, but
you
can
need to get the fuck out.
of my house.
like,
Yeah.
but they
boy.
play it off as like this cute, awkward little like, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, they never really
No.
address
Yeah.
that fact.
Like
that-
the whole time you're just like, Marissa Tomei, make better choices.
Yeah.
Like John C. Reilly, you can let him go, tell Jonah Hill to move out. You deserve to thrive all on your own.
I think this would have worked a little better if Jonah Hill was not cast and it was a actual 15 or 16-year-old.
Yeah.
A teenager maybe could have gotten this to work a little bit better. And
But when you
then-
cast someone who's supposed to be in their 20s and they just act like that,
yeah,
it's just not.
I think the issue is I feel like it's all intentional. I just don't think it was conveyed well through the story. I think this is actually from what I've watched with the Duplass brothers who have made this, they wrote and direct this movie, and they're huge on the indie circuit. They crank out like 2-3 movies a year sometimes, and they're all indie darlings, I guess you could call them. But like, I feel like they wanted to tell a much deeper and darker story about unhealthy relationships and sort of the reliant on Marissa Tomei's character for both of these men in her life and the toxicity that it has on her. But I had to figure that all out on my own. Like that's what I more so wish the movie was in a more dramatic way. Because when John C. Reilly and Marissa Tomei had dramatic scenes together in this movie, they're pretty fucking good. Like you can feel a lot of tension. They're both acting really well. But the screenplay and the directing and the sort of mix and match of comedy doesn't convey it well. And that's where I think the movie really suffers. It just hasn't told it's either told the wrong story for its subject matter, or it just hasn't succeeded in telling the story it wanted to tell.
Yeah, and that's just pretty much where I landed on this. I won't begrudge anyone telling me that they like this because they think it's funny. Fine. It's just not my humor, and I don't think the storytelling itself works for me. But that's anywhere. Yeah.
No,
It's kind of
I don't really have a lot to say
Yeah.
about this one other than I really don't like most of the decisions that they made.
It's too long as well.
which is funny
it's
for a
an hour.
90-minute movie.
Yeah, I was like, cut like 5 or 10 minutes. I was like, make this an 80-minute movie. But yeah, it gets a bit repetitive.
And then give those extra minutes to Jonah Hex.
All right, let's move on to the weekend box office. Toy Story 3 opened with $110 million.
Yes.
Karate Kid went to $29.8 million. The A-Team with $14.4 million. Getting to the Greek with $6.1 million. Shrek Forever After with 5.6 million. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time with 5.56. Do you notice what's not turned up yet?
Yeah.
Jonah Hex with $5.37 million. Killers with 5.03 million. Iron Man 2 with 2.87 million. And Marmaduke with 2.47 million. Dropped off from last week. Sex and the City 2 dropped from 8th. And
Bye.
Splice dropped from 10th.
Well, that is
Toy Story 3 ended up going on to being the highest grossing film of the year, both domestic and internationally. So,
Over $1 billion, I'm guessing.
yes,
Nice.
it was the first animated film ever to make $1 billion. It was
Nice.
the highest grossing animated film of all time until Frozen came out 3 years later.
So we're going to be hearing it for the next few weeks, I guess, on the box office.
Yep,
Nice.
it's a pretty
Deservedly so.
popular film.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, all right. Let's move on to the major news stories. We have X-Men First Class. Cast is starting to come together. This movie comes out in less than a year. Just
Yeah.
want to say that. The cast is starting to come together and the movie comes out in less than a year.
Yeah.
James McAvoy is cast as Professor X.
Cool.
Michael Fassbender is in talks to play Magneto.
I like that
He is
as well.
deciding between this or Dr. Connors in Amazing Spider-Man. He was offered both.
Oh, he made the right.
He
I
definitely
mean,
made the right
yeah.
decision,
Amber Heard is in talks to play Mystique.
That's right.
Rosamund Pike and
Yeah.
Aaron is in talks as Moira McTaggart,
Yeah.
and Aaron Johnson is in talks as Cyclops. Benjamin Walker has signed on to play Beast.
Ah.
I really liked our girl as Moira.
Yeah.
But that would have been that would have been a very
Yeah.
different movie.
Yeah.
Different tone, I think, with her.
Yes, it's interesting that Cyclops was apparently in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Um,
forgot he wasn't in
well,
it.
I think I also think that this was Aaron Johnson wasn't actually Cyclops. He was going to be Havoc, but it was
Because
it was
Cyclops wouldn't have been.
but it was
alive.
in the timeline.
Or-
well.
in the timeline.
I mean,
But yeah.
Who knows?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's technically his
Extended
old.
timelines.
I mean, in Apocalypse, it's his younger brother, which is 20 years later.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Timelines don't matter here, folks. Okay.
Yeah.
but I think Aaron Johnson would probably have been Havoc,
Yeah.
but it was reported as Cyclops because they didn't know that it was going to be Havoc.
Yeah.
I find it more interesting that he had the choice between that Fassbender had the choice. Like it was which one would you rather, and I'm actually find it interesting that he went with Magneto. That I'm going to take the chance
Who
on
played
this.
Dr. Connors in Spider-Man?
Dennis.
No.
Not Dennis Leary.
Because that was the dad. That was
Ralph's fine. No,
Reese
Reese Ifans?
Yeah, that one.
Reese
Okay.
Ifans, yeah.
Yeah, no, he chose better.
yeah.
Yeah.
In other, sorry. Yep.
Amber Heard.
Amber Heard as Mystique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even back then, she wasn't really like.
Back then she wasn't. Yeah.
She wasn't really anybody. Like
I mean-
I get that it would have.
I know
it would have.
Never Back Down is the only thing I can remember her from.
She might not have. She might not have
2010.
done Run Diary, which would have changed. both of
She'd
their
done
lives.
Pineapple Express and Zombieland.
That's right.
So she was still kind of up and coming, and I imagine like there would have been a lot of like.
God, she's in Zombieland. I forgot about that.
It would have been a lot of hype about her in Mystique's suit, I imagine. But,
Yeah.
and they chose someone. Hey, you know what? Who can act and isn't a crazy person.
I also think that Jennifer Lawrence wasn't the wrong choice. Like I know everyone says that she doesn't care in the later two movies, which
Which, you know what? I don't know how much I blame her at that point.
Yeah, but
It's
Well, because
the quality of film that went from X-Men First
Yeah.
Class to Days of Future Past to then Apocalypse.
and also like
Dark
she
Phoenix,
Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix was more like
Contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was
for sure.
always, it was quite funny. Like, I remember Winter's Bone, there was an interview, and they were like, she said, she's like, big budget movies are not really something that I'm going to like
want to do.
Like pursue
do.
and
And then
stuff,
you're
yeah.
like, so then you go and do X-Men and
Yeah.
Hunger Games.
Yeah, but yeah. Other big news. Leonardo DiCaprio officially joins the J. Edgar Hoover biopic.
Ah, there we
made
go.
a bad
Yeah.
choice, buddy.
Uh,
That was
and
rough.
in other bad choices, Alexander Skarsgård joins Peter Berg's Battleship.
Oh, Battleship.
What a movie.
Oh
am
man,
actually-
God,
I'm-
15-year-old Nick
I'm-
loved that movie.
I'm very excited to rewatch
Yeah, so-
Battleship
so
just
am I.
because of like to know what it was.
Diet Transformers, as I like to call it.
I hated him in that movie. He drove me.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I did not like that movie.
I remember Taylor Kitsch and Rihanna.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Rihanna's in that
Yeah,
movie.
and everyone was like, "Oh, Rihanna's gonna be the worst part," and you're
Nope.
like, "You are a moron."
And Rihanna's not Rihanna's fine.
Oh God, no.
Like,
yeah,
she's.
Yeah.
It was like, yep. She obviously just big budget. Why wouldn't she say yes?
As
But I
if
was
you're
like,
gonna
but she
turn
is
down
not. But I was
a
like,
multi-million-dollar contract to be in a
She is
Hollywood
not
movie.
a bad actress
No.
at all.
Dude, we stand Ocean's 8 in this house.
Oh right.
So
the best scene in the Battleship movie is when they do Battleship. Like, there's a scene that goes for about
wait a
5
second.
minutes.
Wait a
You
second.
sunk my battleship.
There's a scene that goes for about 5 minutes that is literally because all the radars are knocked out. Like, it's actually a very tense and well-made scene.
Yeah.
It's just they tried to make that into a movie, and it's like, no.
You're
you
telling
can't.
me that a movie called Battleship and the best scene
Involves battleships.
involves ships that are battling.
Who would have
I'm
thought?
astounded.
I remember there's a lot of like that science dude. And he's like trying to figure
yes.
Yeah.
I very remember like shots of like the jungle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're in that
Yeah.
sort of. It was in.
I'll
was it in
wait-
Hawaii?
I'll wait
They're-
till-
they're
Yeah,
like-
it's
yeah.
not a good movie.
Yeah.
But that's this week's news. I mean, it's fairly interesting. I just am still fascinated by how good First Class is, considering how late into production that movie actually starts. Like, just how
They
they were
did it
able
really
to.
Like it just had like Kevin Bacon. Was he on board?
Kevin Bacon's not on board yet.
Okay.
Like, this.
And you think about it, like Michael Fassbender is like considering it. Like Benjamin Walker, he gets replaced.
Yeah.
Amber Heard gets replaced. Rosamund Pike gets
Like,
replaced. Like,
it's
fuck.
it's just fascinating and this movie does open on June 1st and is good. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not just good, it's
Like,
really
really
good.
good, yeah.
So lastly, in Australian release dates, Get Him to the Greek opened this weekend, and so
Okay.
did Shrek Forever After.
Okay, so
So-
not too
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
That's a like that would have like.
That's a good
even,
turnaround for
yeah,
Australia.
Even though we know what Shrek 4 is like, that would have been that's a good double weekend. you got there.
I mean, and that's it's also it's school holidays.
Yeah.
So obviously,
it feels like we spoke about those movies like
a while
so
ago,
long
but it was only last week. Like 2 weeks ago. Sorry, yeah, it was 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
But, oh man.
Jeez.
Well, guys, that's this week's episode. Thank you so much for checking it out. If you want to follow us all online, our links are down in the description.
Hold
down
on. If everyone's following along at home, what do they have to
Oh,
look forward
right.
to
Sorry.
next week?
Oh,
Next
right.
week, if you are following along at home,
Easy.
it is the last week before the mid-year break. So next week we have Night and Day and Grown Ups. So good luck with those. We will see you next week while we talk about that. But if you do want to follow us all online, our links are all in the description down below. I do want to thank my entire panel for joining us this week.
The entire panel. Nice.
Until then, guys, my name is Jacob London, and we will see you next time.